All right, we are now live on the Book Nymph Live. Welcome, everyone. Right now we have author of The Yellow Hoods, Adam Dreece. He is going to chat for a bit. Yes, say hello, Adam.
Hi, thank you very much, Kenya. This is great. We've done a lot of firsts in the past, the past couple of weeks. So this is nice to add on to that.
Yes, good. I'm glad. As about those first, had your first Facebook party. That was a lot of fun.
hmm
And Adam became an Amazon bestseller for Yellow Hoods, Along Came a Wolf, and The Breadcrumb Trail. So
hmm
that was really, really cool. Can you tell us a bit about the Yellow Hoods?
Sure. Well, basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a young adult series that would really be layered for the mature reader. So I wanted somebody as young as my daughter, who's 10, to be able to appreciate it on one level, but for an adult to be able to pick it up and really feel that it talks to them on their own level. So that was part of what I had in mind, and that's very much my writing style. Now, woven into that, what I did is, being a technologist, and the other part of my life is I wanted to incorporate elements of technology into the back of the storyline. So that really kind of fit with steampunk. But rather than it being full on there, so that can be really intimidating for some readers or folks who are used to reading a lot of steampunk. They find that you usually arrive and everything's already in place. What I want to do is bring the reader along for that, with all the inventors and all those elements of impact of that coming along as the story evolves. So then what I wanted to do is just lace in a little bit of fairy tale, really from the point of view of Ring Around the Rosie reminds us of the real world Black Plague. So I said, well, why not use that same notion for other tales? The idea that the rhymes or whatnot that we know is actually based off of something that was concrete and real elsewhere. So what I wanted to do is have that in there, really just in the background, adding some depth for the mature reader, and it also allows me to infer things or make reference to things for the mature reader that a younger reader may not get.
That is very interesting. The Yellow Hoods it's very good. I've begun reading it myself, and it seems that the readers also enjoy it. It really is good for adults, teens, and middle grade. Can you tell us a bit about your writing process?
Sure. It's really evolved a lot. I mean, this year, after having worked on a memoir that I set aside and having worked on short stories for about 25 years, I finally decided I wanted to write something to get it out there, and I was going to choose the indie path. And so when I started writing Along Came a Wolf, it really was from the perspective of I was just trying to get a story out that my daughter had asked me to finally stop telling her and finally put it into writing. And so I ended up discovering that it just didn't feel complete. So I kept adding some more to it. And then at one point I had to step back and really have a look at how that story was holding together. And I also discovered a lot more about myself and how I write then. So by the time I got to my second book, and right now I'm halfway through writing the third, I realized I needed to sketch out a timeline, and I really jump around as I write. Some people very much write from the beginning on through. I kind of bounce around through the various scenes as they come. Now I also have a full-time job and 3 kids, so I'm fairly intense when I get to my writing process. So I try to make sure to chisel out pretty much from every single day, time in the evening, and on the weekends I only get about an hour and a half on Saturday to add to that. So I spend all the other time walking around thinking about the tales, making notes in various apps, and so when it finally comes down to writing, I pick my music to really drive certain emotions, and I just try to stream it in there at whatever rate I can get in.
That's great. And you just answered my second question as well, is how do you balance, your full-time job, your writing, your family life, and it seems like you have a really good schedule going on there. You were able to put out 2 books in 1 year, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah,
That's great.
and I started writing Along Came a Wolf on January 4th, and we had it out in the middle of April for Calgary Expo. And actually weren't planning on doing that, but about 5 weeks before that event, for those who don't know it, there was 94,000 people. It's one of the largest events we have here in Canada. we got told that we had a potential table, right? We were knocked off the waiting list and asked if we really wanted this. My wife turned to me and said, how are we going to do this? So you're sitting there, you're going, okay, it's not how, it's we're doing this, and we've just got to figure this out. And that's pretty much been the manic cycle ever since. In terms of balancing things, the one big loser in everything is my PVR. I think I've got about 20 episodes of Arrow, probably about 15 of Once Upon a Time. There are series that we've just had to nuke. I've not gotten into Flash or Gotham. It's really been a dramatic change in the amount of TV time. That's really where my extra times come from.
Oh, well, that makes sense. So do you find that you get any inspiration from movies or TV shows?
Yeah, actually quite a bit. You know, watching different kinds of shows or different kind of movies, you know, let me see how things get stitched together, both for the good and the bad. You know, there was a movie we just watched a couple of days ago, and they weren't able to suspend your sense of disbelief enough for you to not see the massive plot holes or, you know, the character inconsistencies. And I've often been told that the way I write is as if I'm watching something, so a video rather than literary style. You can usually tell the level of description goes down as the pace or action kind of comes up, and I put the focus right on the movement or the moment that I want you to really pay attention to. And so some of that I continue to learn from various mediums, not just books, but from various movies and whatnot. How do they change the camera angle? Because I see that potentially as, you know, the reader's viewpoint. What is effectively out of focus in that moment for the reader? What can you kind of get away with slightly off camera? So I incorporate those elements as much as I can.
Oh, well, that sounds great. Can you tell us a bit about, do you ever feel like you get writer's block, and how do you conquer that?
So the image that I get in my head is almost like I've got a safe in front of me and I'm just trying to crack it. And I'll walk around with certain scenes or plot points that are really bothering me for sometimes for a week or two. The big thing about true writer's block, that feeling that you just can't move forward, I've learned a lot from my real-world experiences of, you know, on my professional side in terms of leading software teams, and learning a lot about burnout and how to try to avoid that. So for myself, what I get is smaller, I would call it like writer's hurdles rather than full-on blocks so far, and you know, like I was saying about that plot point, like how do you just decipher it? And sometimes I've just got to step back. Sometimes I've got to leave that side plot and move forward with other ones. And if I just can't figure it out, then I know I need to give myself 2 or 3 nights just off, to step away from everything, really think about things again from scratch. When I was partway through writing book 2, I tried writing a short story. It's a steampunk story that I'll be releasing in a bit, to see if that would help. And all that really did is just increase the stress level, because I had 2 stories of completely different tone, different feel, different eras, and knowing how I just like to walk around with a story in mind everywhere, at the grocery store, on my commute, between meetings, grabbing lunch, whatnot, it really just added to that stress. So I know that I've really got to work on one concrete thing at a time. And I've also got to recognize that I'm doing this for the enjoyment of it. I want to, within 5 years, really step up to being able to do this full time. And I've got to train myself how to do that without burning myself out at all.
That's a good plan. So you say that you go to a lot of conventions and expos. Can you tell us a bit about what you've learned from going to these? Sure.
You know, when I went to Calgary Expo, it was a 4-day event. It was the first time they were doing a 4th day. I'd never been behind a booth at an event like that. As a kid, I'd been to 2 or 3 working behind the booth for a comic vendor. So I knew just a little bit about it, but that was nothing compared to this. And I realized as I had everything set up and I had my display, and I was standing behind the table and they were announcing that people were coming in, I realized that I had no clue how to pitch. And it really took me a day and a half to get it down to be manageable. And you really had to read signs of people. Like when their eyes are glazing, you've lost them. You know, how much is just too much information? You know, you're all excited as the author, and I want to convey all of this, but this is not an author talk. And even for that, you've really got to be careful with how much you inundate people with. So it's amazing to have seen just the pitch alone and recognizing, you know, what connects with people and what doesn't. The simplest thing I learned, and I learned that really quickly, and I'm very thankful to a gentleman named Warren, who was at a booth right opposite me. There was two big lessons I learned. One is never sit down, and that's hard sometimes for 8 hours, but when you're sitting down, it's a totally different type of engagement with people. And then when you're standing, and then when they're walking by, how do you ask somebody if you just may engage them? How do you know, may I tell you about my book? Like, you have to give them a soft opening. Now, that also taught me a lot as I repeated my pitch, you know, thousands of times. And from Calgary Expo, I went to Edmonton Expo and Saskatoon's Expo. Those are the main Canadian Western events. You know, I learned as I repeated some things, trying to find that just right amount of information that doesn't waste their time and doesn't waste your time. And my pitch went down from, I think at the beginning it was something horrific, like 3.5 minutes, down to about 30 to 45 seconds before, you know, you hand the person the book and say, listen, read the back of the book. And at that point, you know, you come to see what's their reaction to the cover of the book, to the back of the book, to what you've said. And I've had to incorporate all of those. And one of those is the reason why we revamped the cover of book 1 when we were doing book 2. And really found our creative footing, because the feedback that I got, which was invaluable, was some people just felt that the original cover didn't speak to them enough about the genre, you know, how it could appeal to audiences, etc.
Yes, I saw both covers, and I actually really liked both of them. So on the front cover, we actually have the character named T, correct?
Yep.
All right, yeah, there you go. It's great. And
no, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that T is based off of your daughter. Is that correct?
Yeah. You know, when I'd say about a year ago, a couple months before writing this, every now and then when I was putting my daughter to bed and lights were out and she was a bit too old for us to really hang out, and I would just make up crazy stories. That's where the concept of a yellow hood came from, and I chose her, and sometimes I would have other friends representing different characters, and it was really silly, along the lines of, you know, a wolf being chased by 3 pigs, you know, inverting 11 kinds of tails, mashing them all up together, you know, glass slippers, finding their ways into other tales. And so from all of that, I ended up with a base concept of characters. And also, I really attached the notion of, whenever I'd been reading to my daughter, there weren't a lot of good stories, very, very few, that I felt had girls and women portrayed in a really strong fashion. And I don't mean that by being characters who were forceful personalities. What I meant was really representing different female character types, different female personalities, and demonstrating how those can all be strong. And not just male characters who effectively have a female name and long hair, which I find more often than not were what we were finding in the stories. So, you know, I took some elements from my daughter, and there's a couple of cheeky moments in the first book. There's a part where T and her mother and then the father gets stepped into the middle of an argument about brushing hair, which, you know, did come from our life.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's really good to instill real-life moments to give those stories a little bit more, you know, make it a little more relatable. So you did a really good job. It's a really good story that, as you said, mixes fairy tale and steampunk and really great characters. That's something that a lot of your readers love, is the characters, and they really jump off the page. So good job. You're welcome. So is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about the Yellow Hoods? You said you're working on book 3.
Yeah, so one of the questions I often get asked is, how long is the series, and what's probably my 10 minutes? So some folks may have seen in various interviews that I've given, this is intended to be a 5-book series. And I've got that whole plot line defined in my mind. Though the number of times where I've said it's 5, now I'm starting to wonder if I'm going to be looking back on this in a couple of years going, okay, well, it was 18, but at the time I thought it was going to be 5. And really what my intent is, after that, is to jump 10 years and have a series that uses this new steampunk world that's been developed in a bit more of a dystopian, slightly older reader perspective, so that the readers would have been able to see how this world transformed from one that was similar in some ways to ours in a setting of about the 1750s, 1800s, and see how it developed into a full-on steampunk world, and then to join some of those characters again 10 years later, and asking the questions of filling in the gaps of time, seeing how things have truly evolved, as well as really having opened up the rest of the world. Because Book 1 really starts just in one small town. Book 2 kind of expands that to include a secondary town. Book 3 really brings the reader out a bit more into the world. And so by the time you end the series, you get a real feel for what is going on, the various countries and politics and whatnot. So this is certain elements that I'm really excited to share. My aggressive writing schedule has me trying to write or come out with 2 of these a year. So right now I've got a deadline of January 2nd to provide Book 3 to my editor, and then hopefully that's going to launch at Calgary's Expo, which is the middle of April, and then I'm hoping to have Book 4 available for September, which is when I have the next Saskatoon Expo and Edmonton Expo. I've been asked about going to a con in New York, and I really think 2015 is where I'm going to now step out and looking at doing some of the expos or Comic-Cons in the U.S., and then probably by 2016 having hopefully a bit of a crazy schedule on that front.
That's great. You seem like you have a really good schedule worked out, and I'm very excited for you. You're welcome. So one thing that really interests me in your stories is the steampunk aspect. Could you tell us how steampunk got your attention? Are you still there, Adam? Looks like Adam might be having a little trouble, and we should see him again soon. So let's talk about the yellow hoods while we wait for Adam to return.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay.
So sorry, I think the question slowed right down.
No problem.
So I didn't hear your question. What was that? Do again.
Okay.
All right. So what was your question?
Okay. All right. I see you. The question was, how did you get into the whole steampunk world, and what was it about? What about it inspired you?
Sure, that's a good question. Around the year 2000, I was in Toronto at the time. It was a couple of years before my daughter was born. Having played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons as a kid, I'd now found a group and was playing with them for a period of a couple of months before my career didn't make any room for that. And during that period, I realized I wanted to kind of push things. And there was a contest by Wizards of the Coast, who were the owners of Dungeons & Dragons at the time, for a new world. So I wrote all this gaming material about this world called Mondus Fumus, and really it was, I hadn't seen the term really steampunk come up anywhere, but I'd read a bit about it, and so I really decided to define that world from that perspective, and it really stayed with me. That world is quite different than the word I'm using for the Yellow Hoods, but I really got into it. I researched as much as I find, and I really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, because of a FedEx clerk screw up, my material never arrived within the deadline, and so that kind of sat there in the back of my mind, never really leaving. And so when I started writing this world out, I was debating between Do I make it kind of a fantasy side? But I felt that there's been a lot of really great fantasy done, and I really wanted to try to push more on the technological side, particularly because having a technical background, there are elements about social friction that you get from technology that I haven't seen anywhere else. So the more that I started to play with it, the more excited I got about it. And then when I started incorporating elements like taking the myth of Santa Claus and combining that with Nikola Tesla, it just really took on a life of its own. It's amazing to have seen just in the past year at the various expos how many people now at the end of this year know what steampunk is versus those at the beginning of the year. So it really seems to be an area of science fiction that's getting a lot of traction, and it's really exciting to be a part of that.
I agree. Steampunk is definitely making a huge, impact on the fantasy world. This last year at Dragon Con, there was an entire segment just on steampunk and how to create costumes and how to use it with your writing, and it was amazing. It really got me inspired to also use a little steampunk in my stories, and that's what really connected with me when I picked up the Yellow Hoods. Yeah, so it was like you having a little steampunk jacket, don't you?
Yes, this is the one that came in my video. I had my monocle on earlier, but it makes it a bit difficult to see.
They're incredible.
Yes, they have all my street cred.
Very good, very good. definitely love that. You're pretty much a newly published author, but you've been writing for many, many years, correct?
Yeah. So over the it's about 25 years, I'd written short stories. Originally, I had a small writing group that I was a part of, and then moved away from. And I continued to write sporadically. It would be binge writing. I would write really intensely for about 2 or 3 months, share that with family and friends, and then drop it for 6, 9 months, and then pick it back up again, and then drop it again. And I very much had that conflict of wanting to pursue that while also pursuing my career in technology. And then just having gone through a couple of really very significant medical events in the past couple of years, I started looking at my life differently. And I knew that I wanted to finish off that memoir, which I did, and I went through a couple of edits, and then I decided I wanted to put it down because I didn't feel that I had the writing chops to really make it as compact as I needed, or rather I wanted. And then I decided that 2014 was going to be the year where I was going to really stop doing this from a casual perspective, and kicked myself way out of my comfort zone. And that's where I'm at now. It's been a real trailblazing year, and as mentioned at the beginning of this, the number of firsts has been amazing. The first time that I wrote something that was novel length, the first time that I put a book together, and dealing with the covers and just the formatting within the book, as you well know, right? Dealing with editors and how do you incorporate that feedback to beta readers, building a fan base. Connecting with people on Twitter in particular, as well as some folks on Facebook and whatnot. It's really been a steep learning curve that's been amazing.
Well, good, very good. So you just mentioned that you should get good beta readers. I did a blog post about your top 5 pieces of advice to aspiring writers. Can you tell us a bit about what you would tell an aspiring writer?
You really have to find some people that you're going to be able to trust will give you concrete advice, but also people who are not, probably the best advice that I got for book 2 came from somebody I met on Twitter, named Caroline, and she broke things out, provided them really in a very straightforward manner, but without it being insulting in any way. Now, you've got to have people who are willing to kind of risk your friendship with them and give you the concrete advice that you have. Now, the other side is you also got to have people that you know you can listen to. You know, sometimes you have the kind of friend you know is going to give things really, really matter of fact, but you don't have the capacity to really absorb what they say, at least, you know, for a month or more. And because on the timeline that I'm on, I don't have that luxury. So, you know, I asked folks for the advice. I had to learn how to absorb it. In some cases, I had to read it, put it down, come back to it a day later, come back to it a third day, and figure out how do I take what they mean as opposed to nitpicking on the words that they choose. Is there a pattern? And I think that is the most critical thing in dealing with the beta readers, seeing really for them what worked, what didn't, and then questioning yourself as to, you know, they mention a problem, but very often also mention a solution. You've got to dissect the problem from the solution and see, do you want to use their solution? Can you come up with other solutions? Or is this potentially a problem caused by something else? And then find ways to incorporate it.
Very good. Thank you very much for sharing your advice. Can you tell all of the viewers how they can find you, where you are on social media, and you also have a blog spot a couple of times a month, Ask Adam Anything. Tell us a bit about how we can connect with you.
Sure. So I am occasionally off of Twitter. You can find me at Adam Dreece, ADAMDREECE. I love to engage with people, and every now and then, for those who are kind of lurking in the background, I actually do an explicit shout out for the lurkers. You'll sometimes see me joking about leaving cookies and waiting for people to come. And I regularly do you know, answer a lot of questions from people about what have I done so far, where am I going, what would I suggest to them. And one of the things to recognize in writing is, you know, while there seems to be an infinite number of people kind of ahead of you in terms of the game, there's also almost equal that number of people who are trying to get to where you are. Also, from a social media point of view, you can catch me on Google+, you can catch me on Facebook. There's a Yellow Hoods fan page, which is just Facebook/the Yellow Hoods. And I do try to post to my blog once a week, adamdreece.com. Now, you did mention the hashtag AskDreeceAnything. So usually about once a month, what I do is open it up for a couple of hours on Twitter. I'm also now trying to include folks off of Facebook. And over those couple of hours, you can ask me anything. And if you go to my site, adamdreece.com, there's actually an Ask Dreece Anything menu item, which will take you to some of the past months. And I get asked some serious questions and some absolutely ridiculous questions. And, you know, you ask me on Twitter, and I put in a blog post the next day or the day after. Some things I answer with insight, and some of them with you. You know, an example of that is one question I've gotten is why. Other ones that I've gotten, you know, are classic ones like, you know, 42. Other questions I've gotten are who would I choose as actors if this was a show? What are the more challenging parts that I had about writing a particular book and whatnot? So it's a lot of fun. I try to stay very much engaged. And that just adds to the schedule that is already crazy, but it's, you know, my tweets really inspire me and drive me, and a couple of times where I've been a bit stuck or doubting myself, you know, I just get to hear the stampede of feet of people coming in, either, you know, encouraging me or kicking me to get going again. So that's
Well, that's great. It seems like you have some very loyal followers on your Twitter page and on your blogs, and we wish you lots of luck. We have a lot more in store for Adam over the next couple of months, so you should definitely stay tuned on adamdreece.com, thebooknymph.com, and on Twitter you can see what is going on with Adam daily. Thank you very much for joining us, Adam. You have a lovely weekend. You're welcome. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao. All right, that was excellent. We just had a really good half hour with Adam and learned a lot about the Yellow Hoods and what you can expect from him the rest of the year and next year. And now we're on to the second segment of the Book Nymph Live, which is with author K.N. Lee. And if you didn't know, K.N. Lee is me. And I'm silly. Everyone knows that. So with my portion, I'd like to talk to you guys about what you can expect from the Chronicles of Koa series and my next series that I'm launching in 2015, which is Rise of the Flame, which is the first book of the Yura Chronicles, which is my epic fantasy. So I will share some of that with you all. All right. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to do a little reading from Chronicles of Koa, Book 3, which is set to release this Christmas. So I hope you're excited. Book 1 had a great year so far. It reached number 1 for dark fantasy on Amazon in the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and Australia. Very excited about that. The Germans are really supporting me, and I'm very happy about that. Can't wait to go to Germany. Okay, let me find the file. So, the Chronicles of Koa series starts with Book 1, which is Netherworld. The second book is called Dark Prophet, and the third book will be called Lyrinian Blade, which is the sword that Koa uses to defeat evil. A little bit of feedback here. So you can find the Chronicles of Koa series on Amazon.com or on my website, www.knlee.com. All right. Excellent. I'm excited to share an excerpt for you. This excerpt is the first chapter of Lyrinian Blade. It may or may not be the prologue. I'm not a big fan of prologues, but this might be a good prologue. Either way, I'm excited to share it with you. Okay, Lyrinian Blade, The Chronicles of Koa, Book 3 by K.N. Lee. Chapter 1. Out of the black smoke and red sparks of flame, she emerged like a beautiful creature from my darkest nightmares. I remember my eyes widening with fear and disbelief, because I'd seen her before, but only in my dream. But Remy, I've never felt such fear in all of my life. It was as if she could see through all of those soldiers. This was a war, a bloody, devastating war, and she knew who I was, and she was coming for me. Essie's voice broke, and she closed her eyes. The buzzing inside her head subsided only when she focused on the memory of her latest dream. Go on, Essie, tell me more, Remy said, holding the glowing pin in the air before her. All of Essie's words were being swept away and stored within the ivory tower's lower vaults. The ivory tower was more than a prison. It stored precious secrets. It stored prophecy. Essie nodded and rested her head of purple hair on her pillow. She closed her eyes and continued dictating her dream. Such beauty was astounding. I've never seen anyone with her features, wild blue hair that whipped around with the rough winds, and fierce green eyes that seemed to glow in the disk moon's dim evening light. She was small, but I felt no shred of doubt that she was the most powerful being on that battlefield. Hordes of creatures tried to swarm her, but she had a team of soldiers making a path for her. Everything was in chaos, Remy. Essie paused. The air was warm in her chambers, she swallowed. Until she pulled out that sword. The entire field went silent when she held that sword into the air, and then she flew. Remy stopped writing. He withdrew the glowing netherworld pen and lowered his violet eyes to Essie's face. What did the sword look like? Essie opened her green eyes. It was black, but became engulfed in a red glow the instant the girl pulled it from its sheath. Remy's face paled. It's unreadable. But Essie could feel that something was wrong. She sat up in her bed and pulled her knees into her chest. What's wrong, Remy? What did the girl's eyes look like? Were they round like yours and mine, or were they thin? Essie thought back. They were thin. I've never seen anyone with eyes like that before, only in books with humans in them. Remy shot to his feet. He clicked off the glowing pen and stuffed it inside his side pocket. What is it? Did I say something wrong? Remy glanced over his shoulder. His long black hair was braided into a long braid that reached the floor. He gave Essie a lingering look, as if unsure if he should tell her exactly what was so troublesome about her latest prophecy. Essie felt her skin tingle with fear. She'd never seen this reaction from Remy. His violet eyes held such worry that she couldn't keep from wringing her hands. Remy looked past her and out of her window at the far end of her sleeping quarters. I am not certain if I should tell you. You are too young to know of such things. Essie pulled her covers off and stepped onto her cold floor with bare feet. Waves of purple hair spilled over her shoulders. She stepped towards Remy. But they are my dreams, she said. My prophecy. Why should the meaning of them be kept from me? I am not too young. I am 17 and almost a woman. Remy shook his head as he looked at her innocent face. Essie knew he loved her like a daughter, and yet her father kept her prisoner. Just like every other prophet to ever be cursed, to be born in the netherworld. You have a lot to learn, dear girl. Essie closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around Remy's waist. She hugged him and pressed her cheek to his abdomen. Then stop keeping things from me, and teach me. Remy pulled her out by her shoulders and held her at arm's length. I will, Essie. I will tell you the truths and tales of your aunt, the half-blood princess of Elion, Koa. And there you go. That is Chapter 1 of Lyrinian Blade by K.N. Lee. We should have that available for you this Christmas. And yeah, I definitely wanted to share that with you because I'm having a great time writing it. Right now I am working on the third book, but I'm also revising Rise of the Flame. Rise of the Flame is the epic fantasy about Lyle, which is a character that has been in my dreams since I was 11 years old. It started off as a story that I actually typed on my mother's typewriter front and back when I was 11 years old, and it's emerged, it's grown so much over the years. It's been beta read 3 times, and it's been revised more times than I can count, and it's morphed from this short story to this epic tale that literally became over 1,000 pages, and you can imagine how it is to revise something that long. It's been hard for me to chop away the pieces that have been in my mind since I was a child, and but it's gotten easier. If you're a writer, you know that once you let something rest, it becomes much easier to go back and edit it. So it's going well now, and I'm really excited because I think that we are finally at the final revision where everything is nice and tight and ready to go, and the readers will love it. So I'll go ahead and share some of that with you. because I love to read, so why not read to you all? Okay, Rise of the Flame by K.N. Lee. I will give you a brief, I will give you the back cover description first. And I recently won a professional book cover package, and I feel like that was pretty much like fate, because the cover that JM, I will tell you, the JM Rising Horse Creations created for me is pretty amazing. Let's see if I can show it to you. Shall show you. Oh, I just took a screenshot. I will show you that in just a moment. I'll go ahead and get the reading done for you first. Okay, Rise of the Flame. This is actually the pitch that I used at the World Fantasy Convention last year in Brighton, England. I pitched this to so many people, and the first time I pitched it, it was really hard. I froze a little bit because I pitched it to the owner of Brandon Sanderson's agent. And that was nerve-wracking for me because Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors. But after doing it so many times, it became so much easier, and I finally stuck with this pitch. There are 6 races, 4 realms, and 1 human girl who could bring them together in peace or war. Lyle has been hunted since the night of her birth. She is the only heir to the human god's throne. For centuries, the races have been separated by an ancient barrier. Now that the barrier is crumbling and vanishing, the races are once again pitted against one another. Who will rule? Which races will survive? And will Lyle give up her chance for the throne to save the race of the man she loves? So, that is the winning pitch. Now, I will read to you from Rise of the Flame. All right, let's start with, I'm actually going to read to you an exclusive excerpt that has not been shared anywhere, because you can actually read the prologue on one of my blogs, thechroniclesofkoa.blogspot.com, and you can read chapter 1 on that website as well. But I'm going to read to you an excerpt that has never been seen before. So. All right. This is actually chapter 4 or 5. Not sure yet. Okay. I know what you're afraid of, my love, Sona whispered into Liam's ear. Liam grinned and closed his eyes. She was the only one welcome to disturb his solitude. Sona kissed the back of his neck and ran her fingers through his hair. She smelled of lavender and honey. He swirled around and caught her in his arms. She was light in his grasp and smiled up at him. And what is that? Liam leaned in to kiss her on the lips. Her lips were soft as rose petals and similarly colored. Our wedding night, Sona giggled, and he showered her with passionate kisses all over her white throat. You're afraid you won't know what to do with me. She wrapped her arms around his neck and as he grabbed her skirts into a bunch, pressing her against the mantel of the fireplace. He lifted her by her thighs. She wrapped them around his waist and let his hands glide up her stockings. I'm sure I'll figure it out, he whispered as his hand caressed her smooth legs. Prince Liam, a shrill voice called. Liam sighed, resting his head against Sona's. She looked up at him with unsettling blue eyes. That woman, Sona growled under her breath. Does she follow you everywhere? Liam agreed with that sentiment. He never got a moment's peace. There was always something to do, somewhere to be, for as long as he could remember. Let's see. There we go. Had some feedback there from our next guest, which I can't wait to share with you. What? Liam couldn't mask the irritation in his voice. He rolled his eyes as he heard the high-heeled footsteps enter the room. He knew those clicks along the floor all too well. Lady Cordelia stepped into the quiet room. Liam quickly put Sona back onto the floor and straightened his clothing. His tutor followed as she looked at both of them. Her glare lingered on Sona in particular. Lady Cordelia's serious blue eyes lifted to Liam's face. Her spectacles made her eyes look even bigger as she regarded him. He remembered when he used to draw caricatures of her doing their lessons. He also remembered being struck across his hands with a stick whenever she caught him. Queen Arya asked me to find you. It is your birthday, after all. Lady Cordelia spoke slowly, precisely, always proper and composed. You have guessed, Prince Liam. You shouldn't spend the entire night hiding. Liam gave a nod, even though he cared nothing about being paraded for guests he didn't know. I'm coming. And you, Lady Sonalise Rochford. Her glare... I actually have some markups here. There we go. She shot a rapture-like glare at Sona. What would Lord Rochford think if he knew you were back here, without a chaperone, with your dress gathered around your waist? That is not ladylike at all. Sona looked back at her. I dare you to speak one word to my father. Liam watched in amazement as Sona walked directly up to Lady Cordelia. He once thought that Lady Cordelia was one of the most intimidating women he had ever seen. That was, until he met Sona. The young woman fluffed her petticoats and indigo skirts out and retied her white bow around her tiny waist. She was a noble woman. Her father, Lord Rochford, owned all of Climerick's Row, the wealthiest street of row houses and shops in Oran. He was a prominent political figure, and yet Sona didn't care about the constraints her title should have put on her. Sona did what she wanted. Liam envied her. Perhaps that was why he had proposed to her. But you haven't heard, Lady Longneck. Sona grinned almost evilly. That is what everyone calls you, you know. Liam looked in surprise at Lady Cordelia. Sona never censored her speech. She said whatever was on her mind. Lady Cordelia's face turned red. Sona began to leave the room. She glanced back at the wiry older woman whose ruffled collar was buttoned all the way up to beneath her chin. Liam's brow lifted. Lady Cordelia almost seemed to shrink under Sona's glare. Impressive, Liam thought. No one can make that woman so much as flinch. She didn't care I don't care what you tell him. He'll probably have you killed anyway, she said with a flippant shrug of her shoulders for spreading such vicious lies. She grabbed her silk shawl from the back of a mahogany chair. She flashed a smile at Liam. I'll see you later, darling. She waved graciously and disappeared into the crowd outside the door as if nothing had happened. Liam stood there silently as Lady Cordelia waited. He almost rolled his eyes when she lifted a long, thin finger to wiggle at him. He knew the scolding was about to begin. Liam, Lady Cordelia looked to him. Liam raised an eyebrow. Prince Liam to you? She put her hands on her hips and gave him her best scowl. Oh, don't try that with me, Liam. I've been your tutor since you were a little wild toddler, wetting your pants. Don't give me any sass. That girl you're marrying may have a filthy tongue, but you know better. Liam sighed. No point arguing. She shook her head, her face softening. Why are you hiding in here, Liam? Her voice came out much gentler this time. Liam shrugged, glancing at the doorway. Too many people. Outside those doors were thousands of people waiting to see him. They were crowded in all of the public rooms of the Arenian halls. So many people made him nervous. She offered a small smile. You're 25 years old today, Liam. You cannot hide anymore. All of those people out there are expecting you to protect the kingdom. No masks or disguises can hide you now. Your time has come. Liam put his hands in his pockets. He swallowed. She was right. It was time. This would be the last night that he would be in the castle. For years he thought he wanted nothing more than to escape his studies and see what the real world had to offer. And now that time had come, and only he knew just what that meant. Being a scholar brought more than knowledge. He'd studied the prophecies. He knew what was coming. I know, Lady Cordelia. We've prepared for years now, and I am ready, he said, standing just a little taller. He tried to give a reassuring smile. Liam knew she already doubted him in her head. Many of his subjects looked at him with skepticism. This was supposed to be our savior? He could read that very question in their eyes. He wasn't a big man or remarkably tall. He was too skinny compared to his warrior friends. Liam feared that he was too ordinary to be someone special. He started toward the door, and she caught him by the wrist. Prince Liam, listen for a moment. He lifted a brow. Her face looked troubled. I know you're leaving tomorrow and everything, but promise me something. Liam nodded. What is it? He wanted to make his way to his private quarters. He wanted to get a good night's rest before he left with the Order of Orin. His friends would be ready and waiting for him in the morning. Lady Cordelia's eyes went wet with tears. It made Liam uncomfortable. She had always been the strictest of tutors. He didn't like seeing her facade fade. Don't let anything you see out there in the wildlands change you. Don't let anyone taint your good heart, especially that foul woman that dares to call herself a lady. Watch yourself. Lady Rochford is my fiancée. She shook her head. I'm sorry, but I don't know how you chose her out of every lovely woman at court. She isn't good enough for you. He turned away from her. Why wasn't she being fair about Sona? She loves me, William replied, and who says I'm good enough for any of those women outside those doors? You speak as if you're incapable of being loved. We all love you, Liam. There is no need to settle. Most of those people out there have no idea what you really are, but I know. You fight for our entire race. Stay focused and don't let us down. She had never spoken this way. Her words worried him. I promise. He left her in the empty cloakroom and entered the busy hallway. It was after midnight and the ball was still in full swing. He walked with his hands in his pocket, and then remembered Lord Eisenmore's gentleman's training, and quickly took them out. While Lady Cordelia had spent years training him to be a scholar, Lord Eisenmore tried his best to train Liam to be the perfect gentleman, the future king. Still, he forgot some things at times. Prince Liam, the guest said whenever he passed. They bowed and glanced at him in awe. 16 years secluded in the vaults, and 9 more spent in the walls of the military stronghold in the north, and none of his civilian subjects had ever seen his face until tonight. Liam nodded to each of those who addressed him. Though he walked with his back straight and his face calm, inside he was a swirl of nausea for being stared at so. His black hair had been brushed and styled differently than any man who attended the ball. A future king must set the trends, Lord Eisenmore said, not follow them. Tomorrow, most of the men in the court would try to sport the same hairstyle. Liam wore a rich red and white tailored suit and walked with his jewel-encrusted sword at his hip. There was a time when a weapon felt foreign to him, but after being locked away with the other soldiers of the elite Order of Orin, he was never without his sword again. It was an extension of him, and he wielded it with an expertise that couldn't be explained in someone so young. Faces. Smiling faces, judging faces, envious faces, adoring faces. So many faces, and he didn't recognize any of them. He wished his best friend, Roe, were a nobleman. He wished the captain had been allowed to come. Instead, he was forced to mingle with complete strangers, people who probably secretly wanted him to fail. Liam was the only heir, and there were those who wanted him dead. There were fools who coveted the throne. They still went about their political intrigues and scheming as if nothing had changed. They had no idea what was coming to the realm. Liam avoided the stairs and looked up at his mother. Queen Arya seemed to glow a little brighter than the other Trians around her. This was Kyril, realm of the Trians and the Furies. Every Trian had a glow that reached from the inside out, and yet she stood out as a light shone only for her. He felt a lump in his throat. Her piercing gaze rested on him, and she smiled. This might be his last night seeing her beautiful face, and in an instant he could see that same thought reflected in her eyes. Oh, mother, he thought, stop reading my mind. She grinned. It was a secret smile, and only Liam knew its meaning. Forgive me, It is a terrible habit, she said silently back to him. Liam walked up the short staircase to the row of thrones. There were only two, when there had once been three. His father had been dead for 20 years now, and he still remembered where he used to sit up there. Listen, Liam, my boy, Queen Arya said, and hugged him. Liam stood beside her, and there was a loud cheer from the crowd. She raised his hand up with hers and smiled down at the large ballroom packed with giants, dressed in their absolute best finery. Tonight, she called, my son salutes you, for he is the chosen one who will deliver us from the hands of evil. These are dark times indeed. He will rid our realm of the murderous shadow elf clans that invade our territory. He will protect us. The crowd cheered even louder. Liam almost wanted to shout at them. They knew nothing. Shadow elves weren't nearly as bad as what they really should fear. As Queen Arya smiled at the crowd, she locked arms with Liam. Liam, I love you, she said silently to him. Even while she smiled at her people, Liam could feel lost my spot. Liam could feel the tension. I've tried to protect you for as long as I could, but I fear the barriers are being opened. We both know there are more sinister things in the works. We both know that Wexen wants you dead. She looked at him, worry lines tainting her forehead. She gave his hand a squeeze. Please don't get yourself killed out there. Get the talisman from the Alden clan in Raiden, and wait for my word. I fear the time to meet the others is upon us. Liam nodded. Do not worry, Mother, Liam thought. His mother could read most anyone's mind. He was not immune. The Alden clan will willingly give us the talisman for safekeeping. And as far as the Shadow Elves are concerned, they don't know the havoc I will unleash upon them. He could feel his adrenaline start to rush. The time for reading books and scrolls was over. The time for training and preparing had come to an end. He thumbed the hilt of his sword. Tomorrow his sword would taste blood, and there would be no turning back. Thank you very much for listening to my reading of Rise of the Flame, which comes out January 2015 on Amazon and kn-lee.com. Right now, we are about to welcome author of Headspace and some of your favorite paranormal romances, author Calinda B, who is ready for us.
I'm ready for you.
Hi, Calinda.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. I got brave and I allowed the video.
Good job. You look great.
Thank you. I'm at a conference, so I have to look good today.
That's amazing. Which conference are you at right now?
I was going to say, I had to get out of my pajamas to do this video.
Well, thank you for showing us your lovely face and spending time with us while you're at a conference. Which one are you at today?
I'm at the Emerald City Writers Conference in Bellevue, Washington, which is just of Seattle. Bellevue is like the she town.
Well, that's nice.
I used to live here. I lived here a long time ago, and Bellevue was nothing. It's all been built up by Bill Gates and Microsoft and.
Oh, interesting.
Going uptown if you go to Microsoft Town, Bellevue, yeah. Whereas I live in Kingston, which is out in the woods, and I wear T-shirts and jeans all the time.
Well, that's great. Sounds great. I have not been to Seattle before, but sounds lovely.
Oh my gosh, it's such an electric city. It's like I always feel like I come alive when I head down the hill to Seattle, like I just plugged my fingers into an electric socket.
Well, awesome. So, would you like to do a Q&A live with us today, or do you have something else planned? Plan.
I have nothing planned because I've been at this conference. I'm counting on you.
Okay, excellent. Well, great, because I have some really good questions to ask you today.
Okay.
All right. So tell us a little bit about what kind of stories you write.
Well, I was joking today on Facebook that I always write a good story around a good story about sex, because I include a lot of sex and erotic content in my stories, but they're all great stories. So, for instance, my first story was a paranormal romance about a young woman who had some bad experiences in childhood, and it turns out that she's a really big deal in the universe, which she only found through embracing her sexuality. How cool is that, right? You get to be a sexy person, and when you're sexy, you have all these superpowers. And then thank you. And then I went on from there to write about, it's a series, so I wrote about her boyfriend's story because he just went nuts when she turned into a paranormal glowing being. He was like, what? Because he's all about the physical reality and, rock climbing and kayaking. And so that story kind of has woven from there, and I have many more books in the works with that one. And then I started a series called the Beckoning series, which is about another young woman who lost her parents in she thought it was just an airplane accident, but it turns out it was an evil sorcerer who played a part in their death. So her life in uncovering their murder. Now she knows it's a murder, but in uncovering that, she learns that she's a big deal. Everybody in my stories learns that they're a big deal, Mm-hmm. You go through life thinking that, I'm just a schlub, or I'm just a silly person, and you find out that you're awesome. I think that's the way life should be. So there's that. And then I've written a couple of sci-fi books and a contemporary romance that I'm working on as well.
Oh, so, amazing.
Yeah, I'm prolific.
I agree. I remember doing a party for Looks Like Trouble to Me. Yeah, that was a very good party. Can you tell the viewers what Looks Like Trouble to Me is about?
Well, that's an interesting story. I mean, all of my stories are interesting as far as I'm concerned, because if they weren't, I wouldn't be writing them. But it Looks Like Trouble to Me, I tried to figure out what it takes for a guy to change. And this guy had a really troubled past. You can tell that's a theme for me. But this guy had a really troubled past, and he's super good looking, and so he used his party skills and his mad sex skills and sex, drugs, and that kind of life on a yacht up in Port Townsend, because he's a boat builder too. Anyway, wild life, and he's got a twin sister whose life is like tragically wild. And so I thought about how the thing that I've noticed in my life, the thing that really changes a guy is to assume responsibility, either for a wife or a child. A child will change a guy like nothing's, like, boom, as long as the guy is willing to show up and be responsible. So my hero, Jace, he ends up having to take on a child. I'm not going to tell you how it happens because that would be a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But anyway, he has a child in his life, and it's like he's not down with it as far as it wasn't a lifestyle choice for him, but he's willing to assume responsibility because at his heart he's a really, really decent, responsible guy. So anyway, as Jace is taking care of this child, he falls in love, of course, because it's a romance, right?
Yeah.
You have to fall in love in a romance. And he has to assume a new level of responsibility because the woman that he falls in love with is a really good person. And she's honest and kind, and he's consorted with the Wild Bunch before. So anyway, it's this whole story about that and how he thinks he's left his trouble behind, but it follows him like, mongrels to a bone or something. And so I had a lot of fun with that story. And it made me cry sometimes because because there's the story of this child is it's the story of a child who's not wanted by her parents, right? And that's sad. And I'm learning all the ins and outs of the court systems when that kind of situation comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So the sequel to Looks Like Trouble to Me, which I'm working on madly between edits for my other books, is called Trouble Times 2, and that takes it, it's like the romance has already happened. It's still a new relationship, but now they're living together and figuring out all the ins and outs of what that's like. And as you know, once you get past Romanceville into the seriousness of a relationship, it can be awkward and unsettling and a lot of fun and crazy nervous and, oh my God, he's watching me while I'm in the shower. And I try to make it as real as I can. In fact, I was talking to Victoria Dahl, who's my new favorite author. She's an awesome author who writes romances that aren't exactly erotica, but she says they're dirty, and she likes dirty sex. That's her word. So anyway, she was telling me, you know what? I lost the thread of what I was going to say. Where were we? I was on a roll with a story, and then I started thinking about her and how awesome she is, and how I'm now a fangirl of hers. So,
well, she is awesome, and I think he's given you some good advice lately, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, she was the keynote speaker yesterday, and she talked all about the process of her writing, which is, she's prolific, and she's one of a USA Today best-selling author, and she's written tons of books, and she talks about how people regard the sex in her books. I mean, obviously she's got a lot of fans, like hundreds of reviews. I love you, I love you, I love you. But she says some readers feel obligated to email her and tell her how awful her book is.
Oh.
And she's great about it. She just clicks delete. She doesn't worry about it. I fret when people do that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then she talked about how one of her favorite characters, some reviewer, a big reviewer, wrote, "Oh my God, your female lead is like a dog in heat." She's like, "Well, what's wrong with that? She likes to have sex." So yes, I've gotten a whole lot of support this weekend about being a sex-positive writer. I have my own tragedies in my past, and I had to work really, really hard to heal them, and they still come up to bite me in the behind. But I'm all about turning it around and making positive statements about sex for readers, young and old.
So. Very good, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? Do you feel like you have a process, or?
I was talking to a fellow writer last night at dinner, and she was saying how she uses that NaNoWriMo process.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you like a goal and a deadline. I don't have a problem with writing. It's like for 3 years I got up at 4 in the morning and I wrote till 8, and then I did my regular job. And I did that every day, and in 3 years I have 12 books under my belt. So I think I don't need to have any goals or any timekeepers for myself. So I write a lot. I write the first thing when I get up, and I write throughout the day when I can. It's like I'll be telling my husband, yeah, I'm working on our web project, but I'm actually typing on my book. Don't tell him I said that. He watches this. I'm busted. Yeah. But I love to write and shape worlds and craft stories, and when I'm really immersed in a book, they're following me all the time.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to you ask Adam about what he does about writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't often get a block when I write, but I'm stuck in a place in Troubled Times 2. But that's okay because I'm swamped with edits for my other books. I just got them back from the publishers. And so it's like if I just let them rest in the back of my mind, the problem that I'm stuck on, it's like an answer will just reveal itself. So I got, I made it too I didn't put enough conflict in that scene. I need to make Jace like desperate to get inside of Zoe for his own personal demons. It's like that's how this guy purges his demons is by being sexual. So bingo, now I'm ready to go home and write, but I can't because I have to do edits.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I have that sometimes as well, where there's a problem that I can't get through in a book, but I'll go to sleep and have a dream, and it'll work itself out. So
totally, yeah. The process of writing and being creative is like conscious. It's unconscious. Yeah, it's a whole creative process. It's a mystery to me how we can pull stuff out of the atmosphere.
Absolutely. So are you a hybrid author where you do independent and
Yes, I just became a hybrid author this year. A small press publisher picked up 6 of my books.
That's incredible.
I know, it's amazing. So my first 2 series, the Wiccan series and the Beckoning series, they were pulled from retailers everywhere on July 15th, and I'm waiting madly for them to be re-released, but that's what I'm doing is when I say I'm immersed in edits right now, because this company likes to release them all at once. So
wow, that's congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did, yeah.
Can you tell me your thoughts on traditional publishing versus independently publishing?
Well, I started as an indie writer. It's like I said, I've only been doing this for 3 years, and it's been this fascinating journey. I feel like I've learned a lot about the, positive, supportive authors around me, and I've also got to see the dark side, the mean girl authors, which is, it's unpleasant, but they're out there, and some people are really competitive, and yet it's just a great process. And I'm spacing out again. I keep thinking about being at the conference. I apologize, but I'll flash on a scene because that's where I am. So what did you ask me again? I get to be the spacey author today.
That's fine. We're having fun.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on traditionally publishing versus.
Oh yeah. I do want to talk about that. So I started out as this indie author and journey. That's where I went out on a tangent, and I've heard a lot about traditional authors and their experience and relationship with the publisher that's not particularly positive. It's like I've heard a lot of bad stories about these publishers that pick up these authors and don't promote them or don't pay them. There's a current scandal going around that with Eller's Cave that it's a big deal, and I know some of the authors who aren't getting paid, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope that gets resolved because we're the people that allow these publishers to make money, right? If we weren't doing our job, they wouldn't be getting any money. So I was always scared about pursuing traditional publishing, but when this sort of fell into my lap with this publisher, so I couldn't say no to it. It seemed it came at the right time, and so now I'm excited to be a hybrid author and see how that rolls for me.
Well, good. You're excited for that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what did you do before you started writing?
I still do it. I'm a graphic designer, web designer. I've had a lot of careers. Creative people get to have lots of careers in their life. I've been a dancer. I taught hip hop. I taught aerobics. I did movement therapy, and then I went into web design and graphic design. Oh, but way back in the day, I was an artist, a galleried artist, and I was in this book this woman was taking across the country to get published, and she showed it to museums everywhere, but she couldn't get the funding to publish it. So lots of careers in my background. And it gives me lots of stories.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So do you get inspiration? Do you travel a lot as well?
I haven't traveled a lot over the last couple of years, but we love to travel. I get inspiration everywhere. I've got crazy friends, a lot of crazy friends, and I've got a curious mind, and I often blurt things out at parties after a half a glass of wine, so I ask people ridiculous questions. Like I was telling, I was in a class yesterday, and I asked a question to Victoria Doll, asking her if she does realistic sex or if she does, the sex where, they have orgasms all night long, and the guy has orgasms all night long, and I I said I went to a party and I queried every male at the party, how many times a night can you come? So that's what I bring to a party. And they all said, probably 3, and that's usually if there's drugs involved. So I thought, well, that's realistic. And then I thought about, I'm sorry, we're getting down and dirty, aren't we, with author K. Nicole Lee. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm really curious, and I ask questions I probably shouldn't ask. But then you'll have Charity Parkerson on soon, and she does the same thing. So, yeah. If you want to find out the answer to a question, you got to ask the question, right?
That's right, and
right.
Very good tactic. I am also live tweeting about this. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Am I going to be embarrassed in the morning? I want to still like myself tomorrow.
You're doing great, and you're being honest, and that's amazing.
Yeah, that's me. Yep.
Okay, so do you have any advice that you'd like to give to other authors?
Persevere, for one thing. Don't give up on yourself. When I listen to fellow authors who struggle and say, "Oh, I'm not good enough" or something. If you have the passion to write, just do it, and follow the trail. It's like I never wanted to be a writer. My English teacher in high school told me that I'd be a writer, but I'm like, I want to grow up and act out a lot. So that's what I did. and then a few years ago, I was visiting my son in California, and I don't know where this came from. I told him I'm going to go home and write a book. And he went, "Okay, Mom." I mean, the 20-something guy, he's like, whatever, I don't care what you do. And so I went home and I wrote a book in 6 weeks. So I don't know where it came from to write a book, but it's changed my life. So if you're passionate about writing a book, do it. Like I've talked to a few authors this weekend who say that it helps you integrate your own life story. It's helped me to heal in a lot of ways to be a writer, and it's a remarkable journey. For one thing, you have to learn how to take criticism. I'm the kind of person that will run from the room if you want to criticize me. But I have to sit there and take it as an author. I have to get critical feedback from my editors. I have to listen to snarky reviewers who hate my books. Like one person called my books Flibberty Gibbet. I don't even know what that means, but I clearly punched a button in her. So anyway, if you feel you're supposed to be a writer in life, keep writing. Keep writing, keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And there's so many resources online where you can find fellow authors who have the same fears and desires as you. So use social media.
That is very good advice.
Thank you.
Totally agree with that. So keep writing.
Keep writing.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about what you're working on now?
Like I said, I'm trying to finish up Troubled Times 2, but I'm excited because I got all these edits back from my new publisher. So my Wicca will be out. They swear it will be out in 2015, which gives us a couple of months to get by 2015. So yeah. They swear it will be out within the next couple of months. The first 3 books of the Wicked series. So
Oh, that's so
I'm excited about that. Yay!
And what is the Wicked series about?
The Wicked series is the one that I mentioned where this woman had a bad childhood and now she turns out that she's an awesome human being who's, when she's turned on, she has amazing superpowers. But here's the catch. She has to be turned on and in love. She can't just have random sex and have superpowers arise. So I put a little twist in there.
That is so exciting. That's
Yeah. Funny.
Let's see. Trying to think of some juicy questions to ask you.
Oh, juicy. Watch out. I'll answer them.
And I do remember seeing that you were also a drummer?
Oh, yeah. I'm a baby badass drummer. I have a djembe, which is an African hand drum. And I'm currently training. I'm in a class with an amazing drum teacher, Zarina Wolf. I love her. I adore her. And everybody in the class is super supportive. I've been in drum circles where they're not as supportive, but yeah, I love drumming. I love rhythm. I love music. Love it, love it, love it. You know, both my kids are musical, and I grew up playing piano, which I hated. I hated piano lessons. You know, have to practice. Oh my God, have to sit down and do scales. But yeah, I've always had this sense of rhythm in my soul. So, and I hope to be in a performance drum group next spring. We're gonna start one. So yeah.
That's really fun. Very cool. Yeah. So what authors are you reading right now?
Currently, I'm reading Jodi Picoult, Leaving Time. It's an awesome book. I got to tell you, it's an awesome book. It's about a young gal, 13 years old, who lost her mother at age 3, and we don't know if the mom was murdered or tired.
Pardon me.
I know you're not bored.
No, absolutely not. No.
Did you have a wild night last night? Yeah, no. So Jodi Picoult's book, Leaving Time, it's so this young gal is looking for her mother. We don't know if mom was murdered or we don't know what happened. It's a great story, and the mom was an African researcher, on African elephants. So Jodi has woven in this whole story about elephant behavior, which totally fascinates me. I love animals a lot. Yeah, and so I love hearing the story of the matriarch tribe of the elephants, and it kind of blows a lot of myths about elephants. You know, they're not. Well, I never thought they were a cozy creature, but you see them in the zoo and you think, aw, the same way you think, aw, about a polar bear that could eat your head, you know? So, yeah, so I like to hear the reality of the animal kingdom, not just the myth of them as these cuddly creatures, you know? They're creatures we coexist with, only I don't think we do it very well.
Mm. Well, that sounds like a very good book, too.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm reading that, and before that I read all of Jay Crownover's books, Rule, Jet, Nash, and Rome. Those are just romances about bad boys with good hearts, you know. And I don't know what I read before that, but I'm getting ready to read all of Victoria Dahl's books in a binge reading. No, I'm kidding, but I'm going to read them.
And do you have a favorite author?
You know, those kind of questions, I have a favorite author of the moment. You know, that's how I am. Of course, I bow down to J.R. Ward and Karen Marie Moning. They're like the godmothers of the genres that I like to write. But currently, I'm really digging this book by Jodi Picoult, so we can say today she's my favorite author. Tomorrow it might be you.
So, can you tell the viewers where they can find your work and where they can connect with you?
Well, I'm always on. Every day I sit down and I have Facebook open, and my Facebook is my friend page is Calinda B, and I have to look for my official author one. I think I would know that, huh? Calinda B author.
Okay.
And then on, you know, my website is calindab.com. But I had a rough summer this summer. I had a great summer because I got published. I had a rough summer this summer, so I haven't updated my website. So if you go there, I'm a web designer. So I'm telling you, I'm giving you the backstory. I haven't kept it up. I don't want you to think I'm a bad web designer, but you know, it's like I just haven't kept it up because there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
So anyway, calindab.com or my Facebook page are the best places. The Facebook page is the best place. So Calinda B author.
Okay. Do you ever interact with readers on Twitter?
You know, my Facebook page, it feeds to Twitter.
Okay.
I don't hang out there a lot. I think Twitter is like shouting into a stream. You know, everybody's out there, look at me, no, look at me, and I'm not the look at me, you know.
You're right. You're right. You do see a lot of that on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I got other things to do besides hang out on Twitter. Do you hang out on Twitter?
I do try to respond to tweets that people send towards me. I do try to keep up with that. So yes, sometimes.
Okay, well you can give me a lesson or two, and I probably won't follow it, but you can tell me. You can give me your tips.
Most of my Twitter is mostly promoting other authors and sharing their stuff.
Yeah. You're good about that. You're a great promoter.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Such a positive spirit.
Thank you. And very giggly, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But
literally my nickname. So.
Is it?
Whenever you see me put a smiley face or LOL online, I'm really laughing.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good to meet you today.
Thank you.
Been a big fan of yours for a while now.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. With our last few minutes, is there anything else that you'd like to tell me or the people that are viewing and the people that will view this when it's recorded as well?
Let's see. I like Victoria Dahl's joke that she told at the beginning of her keynote speech yesterday. She said, "What does what does a Scot wear under his kilt?" And the answer is, on a good day, lipstick. I thought that was a great joke.
It's really good. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for sharing that and spending time with us today, Calinda. And I hope you have a really fun rest of your trip.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me on this. It's been fun.
Yes.
Virtual panel. You got some mad skills going on, girl.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope they just spread out into the world. So,
Me too. Thank you so much, Calinda. We're going to switch to Lawrence, who's over there. Yeah. So have a great afternoon.
Thanks. And I'm going to depart. I'm sorry, Lawrence, I won't get to watch you because I have to clean up my room and get out of here. So, well, I have to leave my hotel room. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Lawrence, hi. I can't hear you. Is your mic? Let's see. Alright, let's see here. I will try to see if we can do. Are you seeing my? Do you have your chat box open, Lawrence? No. Okay, we're going to give Lawrence a few minutes to see if he can get his audio to work for us while I play around with some filters. Ooh, right. Still can't hear you, Lawrence. So Lawrence BoarerPitchford is a new favorite of mine. He writes incredible epic fantasy. I just finished The Lantern of Durn Blackhammer, which can be purchased on Amazon.com, and it is very, very good. Still working on getting Lawrence heard. Let's see. Welcome to the Book Nymph Live. Okay. Well, let's see. I am going to grab my IT guy and return. I will be right back so we can see if we can get Lawrence maybe. All right, we're going to stand by for just a moment as Lawrence tries to work things out on his end. And while he does that, I will share with you a little bit about our guest. All right, so Lawrence BoarerPitchford was born in California and is the son of Lawrence Judson Red Pitchford, Jr. The author grew up enjoying science fiction and fantasy stories by authors such as Larry Niven, Edgar Rice Burroughs, H.G. Wells, and Philip K. Dick, to name a few. One of his favorite writers still today is the late Robert E. Howard, who was the inspiration for the In the World of Hyperborea novella. Lawrence went to college in California, studying first business, then majoring in international relations. Later, he would receive a master's in science degree in information technology. While in college, he and his roommate began writing short stories to entertain one another. One day, they had enough to make a book, and with much effort, they cobbled together a novel. With some luck, he and his roommate found a publisher, and their book, Tales of Mad Cows and Brothels, was published in 2000. The excitement and energy that rose from that experience energized Lawrence and encouraged him to write more. It would be 12 years later that he had enough material, 3 novels and 2 novellas, to seek publication again. His goal is entertainment, and if his works achieve this, he will forever be a happy man. Okay, let's check in with Lawrence again. He is going to try and switch to his cell. Very cool. So, if you're viewing this, you should be able to send us questions as well if there's anything that you'd like to know.
Can you hear me?
Hi! Yes, I can hear you.
All right, excellent.
Good to see you.
Hello. I got you on my cell phone now. For some reason, the laptop was not doing its thing.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome. So you're actually an IT professional?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
I work for a State Department as a information security security person.
Oh, okay. Very excellent.
Yeah.
So how are you today?
Doing quite well, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much.
And how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very happy that I get to spend today talking to some of the authors that I've been working with for some a long time. I've known you. I seem like I've known you for a while because you've participated in my writing challenges, and I'm always blown away by your writing. So it's so good to see you in person.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes.
It's definitely a bunch of tough acts to follow.
Well, you're an amazing act as well because, like I was just telling the viewers, I just finished your amazing book, The Lantern of Dern Pitchford. Dern Blackhammer.
That's pretty funny.
I know.
I would always like to be immortalized like that.
And it was very good. So if you'd like to talk about that, I'd be happy to hear it. You can talk about any of your books if you like.
Okay. Well, so I have 4 novels.
Mm-hmm.
2 are historical fiction. One takes place during the end of the Roman Republic, and it's an adventure story. It's primarily what I write are adventure stories.
Mm-hmm.
The other historical fiction is a novella. It takes place at the end of the Civil War, the American Civil War. For some reason, I'm having things happen at the end of stuff, so I don't know. So both of those are, exciting adventure tales that take the reader along a certain path of action and crazy mayhem. The other 2 are fantasy. I like writing fantasy. As you mentioned earlier, Robert E. Howard was one of my favorite authors, and he wrote what's considered low fantasy. And low fantasy is the barbarian genre. And one of the other of my favorite authors is J.R.R. Tolkien. And, of course, his genre is high fantasy. And The Lantern of Dern Blackhammer is a high fantasy story.
Yes, and it definitely fulfilled all of what's expected in high fantasy, swords and sorcery, different races. It definitely had a Tolkien feel, which gripped me from the first page to the last. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a great compliment. I always, hope to get feedback from somebody, and you know how readers sometimes are. They, read your book and then you never hear from them again.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Seems to be the plight of the indie author.
Absolutely. So, you're possibly working on the sequel to The Lantern of
Yeah, so I have several things in the works currently. I just finished a sequel to my Robert E. Howard fan fiction, which is called In the World of Hyboria. And then each one has its own little title, which this sequel is going to be the Atlantis Requiem.
Mm-hmm.
And it follows the main characters of this storyline as they kind of go through and have to battle a prince who has come out of the past, who actually is an Atlantean. The other story, Lantern of Dern Blackhammer, the next story, the working title, is The White King of Moor, and it has to do with our intrepid heroes in search of the codpiece of the White King of Moor. And if you know what a codpiece is, it's a little item that they used to wear during the Renaissance around their, junk.
Okay. Well,
it's a magical item that they're tasked to have to go find.
Okay.
Which
Very cool, very cool. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the main characters in The Lantern of Dern Blackhammer?
Yeah, so the main character is Ford Effergard, and he is a sort of a special agent for the city of Moore. The city of Moore conducts a campaign of intrigue and covert operations because they're constantly competing with other city-states. So he's tasked with going to find the Lantern of Dern Blackhammer by his boss, who happens to be in charge of this secret organization. Along the way, he's supposed to pick up some special operatives who are going to help him. One is a martial arts expert who also is a shapeshifter, and he can turn into a large land cat. The next character is a deposed prince who his wife tries to murder him, and he ends up in a strange land where he is sort of brought along by a god who sends him back to his body, and now he's tasked with his mission to go collect ancient relics, just like the Lantern of Dern Blackhammer. There's another character, an elf named Sean, who he is a lake elf, and he's brought along on the adventure because he's a ship captain. But unfortunately, he has a problem. He was cursed by a witch, and every ship that he sets foot on happens to sink. So he has a hard time fulfilling his lifelong ambition of being a ship captain. The last one is the magic user, who uses the chaotic magic, chaos magic. He's obsessed with using chaos magic, but he doesn't quite have a handle on it. So unpredictable things happen when he decides to employ chaos magic. And so they all join together and head off down the road to find this lantern.
That sounds really cool. For someone that hasn't read the book, I'm sure they will be intrigued by your description of the characters. But the first thing that comes into mind when you describe it is MMORPGs. And are you familiar with such a thing? Do you ever play video games?
No, not too familiar with it.
Okay. But yeah, that's what comes to my mind, where you have
cool.
like a balanced party. You have your elves and you have your healers, and everyone has a task that they, a trait or a task that they have that helps the group. So that's what your group of characters reminds me of, which makes it even more exciting for me because I am an avid MMORPG gamer.
Oh, excellent. All right.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Thank you. So you have done a few writing challenges from my blog, writelikeawizard.com. Have you done anything with those stories? Do you plan to perhaps, compile them into an anthology or a collection or anything?
Perhaps at some point. Right now they're just, sitting in a folder marked, works in progress. Just got far too many things on my plate at the moment. So among one of the books that I've finished, is still in very rough draft form, is kind of like Adam, a steampunk-ish science fiction story, which takes place on another planet, but the main technology of the humans that live on that planet is the late 19th century, early 20th century type of technology. So it's sitting behind those things if I'm going to move forward with anything else.
Well, I'm excited about that, so I don't want to distract you in any way, because that sounds like a lot of fun. You're welcome. So how do you balance your time with writing and work and a family. Do you have a family?
I do. Yeah, I have a wife and a daughter who is grown, so I'm an empty nester. And then I have 5 cats.
Nice.
And
So how do
3
you
of them are
balance that?
kittens.
Oh wow! Oh, how sweet.
So yeah, they're a bit rambunctious and a little wild.
Mhm.
So scheduling my time is actually pretty difficult. With my day job and with my coming home and spending time with my wife so she doesn't divorce me. So, you know, carving out that time is always a tough one. So I'm relegated to sometimes in the evenings, if my wife is working on something, I'll be able to sit down and write. Or if I have time on the weekend, which I try to carve out time, a few hours on the weekend, I'll sit down and I'll write.
Oh, well, that's good. Do you have like a writing process or anything that gets you into the mood for writing? I read Stephen King's book on writing, and it was one of the best writing books I've ever read. Where he has a room and he shuts the door and doesn't let anything to distract him. Do you have some similar kind of process?
No, actually, I guess, sort of a odd fish in that manner. That my writing process is in my head every day, all the time. Even when I'm at work, my brain is working on these stories.
Yeah.
So when I get home, if I sit down to write, and I have a office area, I'll sort of maneuver us around a little bit to kind of see it in the background there.
Ooh.
So, oh, sorry, too much light. So this is our office area. Hope
Very
I'm not
nice.
making anybody nauseous. And so I'll sit down at my computer and start working. And usually when I start working, I sort of become embedded, I guess you might say, in the story. Perhaps a psychologist out there might call it delusional, maybe, where I'm really in that story. I am seeing in sort of a way how the characters are moving, what they look like, the flow, the action of it. So sometimes it takes my wife a few times to get my attention when I'm really down and dirty and focused in the story. So that's my only real process when I start a writing project or in the middle of it.
Yes.
Just
Well,
become focused.
that's awesome. Well, that just solidifies the saying that a writer is always writing or thinking about writing.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure some of our people out there watching this today, if they are thinking of writing or are writing, it seems like a daunting task. But if that's your passion, then that's something that you just need to invest in and continue with.
I agree. Absolutely. You say that you're inspired by Tolkien. Do you have a favorite author?
Yeah, one of my favorite authors is Larry Niven, the science fiction writer. He wrote a set of stories that take place in what he called known space, and it was one of the first books that I read as a youth that inspired me to want to be involved in creating stories and worlds, high adventure, all that kind of stuff.
Well, what just came to mind with me when I'm thinking about the Legend of Durn Blackhammer is my favorite character, which was Osara Han. He was my favorite. I connected with him because his backstory was very fun, and the martial arts, which I'm a huge fan of. Yeah, so he jumped off the page for me, and then out of the blue, he's a cat, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah, he was surprised by it too.
Yes. I was like, let me go back and read that again. Did I miss something? But that was great. So do you find that you have a favorite character in any of your
Yeah,
books?
yeah. In the Leonard of Durham Blackhammer, I think my favorite character is the main character, which is Ford.
Yeah.
He's a little flawed, you know. He's struggling in the bureaucracy to get his tasks done. Um, you know, he's not perfect. You know, he's the kind of guy that can make mistakes, but yet he's striving for this greater goal, which uh, if they don't succeed, could spell the doom for a city and himself.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really feel like there's a likability to that character.
Mhm.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have a actor that you could see portraying him in the movie?
That's a good question. Um, I would have to say, all right, I'll say George Clooney.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe we could have him in it.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Could
If it
happen.
becomes a movie, we'll have to ask him.
Awesome. So, my next question for you just escaped me. Speaking of George Clooney. um, let's see. What do you have to say to writers that are thinking of getting published? Do you have any advice for them?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
What do you have? What would you say to an author or an aspiring author that is thinking of getting published?
Oh, yeah. So if you're an author out there who's completed a work
Mm-hmm.
and you've had it professionally edited, then I would say to start your process, if you're looking for a publisher, you have to start down the process of the query letter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a daunting task to do query letters.
Yes.
I've done quite a few myself. I've at one time worked with a publisher. It's not easy getting a publisher or a literary agent interested unless you're writing in an area that is super hot, which is kind of a catch-as-catch-can situation.
Yes.
So my advice would be, be sending out query letters, be seeking representation from literary agents. All the while, you just keep writing. Keep writing. Get 4 or 5, good novels, stories under your belt and sitting there waiting to be published. If you're interested in going the route of indie publishing, then that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
Indie publishing is a great way to go. It can be a little dangerous in the sense that if you don't get your works polished really well, fans out there or buyers out there could be a little cruel and tough. So just make sure you invest up front in those efforts. But it can be done. It can be done.
Very, very good advice. And I think that is one of the most important things is the editor. Is make sure you get professional editing. So yeah, very important.
Oh yeah, that's critical.
So well, how many query letters did you send out, would you say, just a guess, before someone actually picked up your work?
Well, I had kind of a strange experience. So when my co-author and I wrote the first book, Tales of Mad Cows and Brothels, we decided to start shopping it around. And it took us a good year or so before we got any hit. But the hit we got was from the very first of the e-publishing houses that came out in 99, 98. And they were interested in publishing us primarily because they were looking for stuff to publish, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked with their editors and stuff. So there was never really a query letter process. We essentially just wrote a introduction to what it was, included a synopsis, and sent it off to various publishers waiting for responses, which took a long time. After that, I took a hiatus for a number of years, kind of dropped out of the scene for a little while I worked on my day job career. And when I finally emerged and had written 3 other novels, I wanted to get them published. And then I started writing query letters to literary agents and publishers, and then getting numerous rejections, which is just the typical process, you know. If they don't think that they can sell your work to make money, and they are a business, they're not going to do it. You know, they're not going to be interested in your work. So, so countless hundreds of query letters and correspondence and between publishers and literary agents.
Yeah. I remember going to the Mystery Writers of America convention, which was my first convention, and they said that you should be prepared to send out 100 queries to get 1 response, and it's pretty true.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I went to indie authoring, because it just seemed like, you know, I felt like I had a story that I wanted to be heard. And, you know, I don't write with any sort of conception that, you know, I'm going to be Rick Castle living in the, you know, penthouse apartment in New York City, driving a Ferrari. You know, I understand that, you know, writing is a very personal art. You know, you're putting a lot of yourself into your work, a lot of personal, emotional investment. And, you know, it's a way of artistic expression, but it's not necessarily for the money, even though the money's nice.
Yes. Where can readers
are you
find
there?
you? I am here, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did I flip out or something? Or can you see me?
No, I'm still here. I can see you, yes. Sorry.
Yes, I got scared for a second. Somebody hold me.
So where can readers find you online? Where can they find your work, and where can they find ways to connect with Lawrence BoarerPitchford?
All right, so I'm in Barnes & Nobles. My work's in Barnes & Nobles and out on Amazon. Smashwords is a good way to find my work. You can go to my website, which is BoarerPitchford.com. It's a hard one to, you know, to write out. So, you know, just look for me. Look for the works on one of the pages. Will have my name. You just copy and paste it in.
Excellent.
I have this huge name. It's not my fault. Well, what is it? It is my fault.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
No. So you know, those are great ways to find me. Facebook is another way to connect, and also Twitter. I'm out on Twitter, and of course Google+.
Good.
Oh yeah, and just ask. You know, go to the you know, go to the booknymph.com. Got some stuff out there too with you guys.
Yes, absolutely. Always. And you can find interviews, as well as, I think Lawrence has done at least 3 of my writing challenges on writelikeawizard.com, and there's a lot of him on there, so you can find all of his stuff.
Try to get my stuff out there.
Yes, good job. Oh, and I see that we have Charity joining in. Awesome. So thank you so much for this. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Thanks for joining us.
So how's the weather out there where you're at?
Oh yeah.
Feels great.
Oh, good to see you, Charity.
Good to see you.
Where exactly are you?
I'm in Tennessee.
I'm out in California.
Oh, it's gotta be nicer there than it is here. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's warm, but not hot, thank God, because it was boiling hot just right up to a couple of weeks ago.
It's in the 60s here, so it's pretty nice.
Oh, awesome. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's such a beautiful day here today.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good place.
All right, so we are going to switch on over to Charity. We will see you later, Lauren.
Bye,
Great,
Lauren.
sounds great. And thank you for having me. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, you're welcome.
Bye.
All right, so now we have author, prolific author, award-winning author, Charity Parkerson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, what can you tell us what are you working on right now? Or tell us a little bit about yourself first.
I am an award-winning and multi-published author, currently working for Alora's Cave and Pumpkin CC Publications. Right now I have several things in the works. It's a little sad. I have 3 or 4 books going at the same time, trying to meet March deadlines, but I have the second book in my Spice Life series that I'm almost through with, and I'm about a third of a way through the final book in my No Rival series for Alora's Cave, and I'm working on a new male erotica that I'm hoping to submit to a different publisher because I obviously believe in just having your eggs in everybody's basket.
That's very wise. Very good. So are you a hybrid author, or are all of your books published by traditional publishers?
I am a hybrid. I have some things indie and some things traditional. I believe in that because I love indie. I started out traditional and I got mad and went indie and was full indie for years and swore I would never go back to traditional publishing until I was approached by Alora Cave. As much as I love being indie, there's a lot of doors that are still closed for indie authors. And it's sad because there's so many wonderful indie authors out there and they deserve to be everywhere that the traditional publishers are, but there are a lot of places that just don't see indie as professional works.
Yeah, and that's very sad because there are some incredible indie authors out there. So very cool that you're a hybrid author. That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to focus primarily on A Dash of Desire, which is the second book in my Spice Life series. It's been on the back burner for way too long because when I finished A Splash of Hope, I saw that people were wanting my books to become spicier all the time. I started working for Alora's Cave, and then I really set the bar high there with the spice. And A Dash of Desire's main character is a Southern Baptist preacher. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to be good. So I put it on the back burner, and I've just now picked Tristan's book back up again, and I'm almost finished with it that I've been working on.
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that you have a new project to dive into. Can you tell us a bit about your writing process?
Sure, I'm a big by the seat of my pants author. I know there's a lot of people who are plotters, and I try. I usually sit down and I do have a basic plan. I know where I'm going, but more often than not, once the characters come to life, they then choose they want to go somewhere else. I've had contracts in the past that I've signed with a synopsis saying this is how it's going to be, and then it turned out not to be their book at all. And I had to submit it saying, I swear their book will be next. You know, they just didn't want their story told yet.
That's so cool. That's very cool. So do you have perhaps a favorite character from any of your books?
I do. Actually, McKenna Jones, who is the main character in No Rival 4, unbalanced, because she is an erotica writer, and she's completely insane. And I get more emails about her than I do anybody, because she is just completely insane. She doesn't do anything normal, or she doesn't react to any situation the way a normal person would. And I relate a lot to that, because I'm pretty awkward in public, and I do things that embarrass the people around me. It's like I don't know how to act when I get in public. And McKenna is very much that person. And I think a lot of people relate with that more than they care to admit.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. She sounds like a very cool character. Do you have perhaps an actress that you'd like to see portray her in the movie?
Emma Watson, I think, would be great for her. Or Jennifer Lawrence, because I love Jennifer Lawrence, and I think in real life she's pretty awkward. She's a pretty clear representation of what women are really like.
Right. Yes, she does seem like a very personable and real person that, someone can relate to. So do you ever have moments where you feel like you have writer's block, and how do you overcome that?
No, I do. It happens usually when I get run down. Because I know a lot of writers have a problem with not sleeping well, and I'm one of those. And if I go through a lot of big spell where I'm not sleeping well, it really blocks me up, and I have a hard time thinking straight. And I try to just listen to music, because I find music really inspiring, or just sit down and write, whether it's crap or not. Just keep writing.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I have seen that. That's one of the main things they teach to you is to just write no matter what, make a schedule, stick to it. Do you have a particular playlist that you listen to when you're writing? What kind of music inspires you?
Everything. I usually try to create a playlist on Spotify for each book, because I'm already planning ahead to book tours, and I know they're going to be looking for something, and I'm not good at writing guest posts, so I'm like, okay, I got to have a playlist ready and a character list ready. And usually I listen to a little bit of everything. I listen to rock, R&B, top 40, just about everything, and I will go through and sometimes just go through on YouTube and try to pick out songs that fit the best, and I will put it on repeat. And I have to put my headphones in, because I drive everybody in the house crazy, because if I find a song that really inspires me, I will listen to it over and over and over again until the end of the book, until even I don't ever want to hear it again.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling. I have just found my new song that I put on repeat, and I get so worried. I don't want to get tired of it.
What song is it? You have to tell now.
Well, there's actually two. It's a Coldplay, True Love, and this rock band called In This Moment. Their song is Sick Like Me, and it's just, one of them is good for like romance, and then the other's good for action.
Yes, I completely relate with that. See, mine right now is Maroon 5's Animal.
Oh, yeah.
That just every time it comes on, I'm just like, that's the perfect song for my crazy little characters. So.
Oh, yes, that is a good one. So let's see. So I've been asking the other authors today what their advice is to aspiring authors. Do you have any advice that you'd like to share?
Get ready to watch silently as the world judges you loudly.
Oh, that's such a good one. Yes.
That's one of the hardest things to learn how to do, but you really are going to have to learn to pretend you didn't see it. Take a look at the people that you have the most respect for in this field, and look at what they're doing. Are they talking to reviewers at all? Are they staying silent? Are they liking? Are they upvoting, downvoting? What are they doing? Where are they at? Watch what they're doing and try to emulate what they're doing. The professional thing is to pretend like you don't see it. Pretend like you're too famous to have even seen somebody saying something negative about you online, because it's going to happen. If nobody is saying anything bad about you, then nobody is reading your work.
Oh, that's such good advice. And so, it just hits home because I literally just read an article this morning about authors and how you should not respond to reviewers, no matter if they give you good reviews or bad reviews. You should just, like you said, pretend like you didn't see it. And you're right. Like, I doubt that Stephen King is reading, every review.
He might be, though. You never know. Writers tend to be their harshest critics, and I try to pretend like I don't, but I do try to read every review that I get. On Goodreads, it's hard because there's so many, and sometimes you don't even see them. Yesterday, and I privately contacted a reviewer on Goodreads. But she had reviewed my book through a blog tour, and I was reaching out to thank her because she had noticed something in my book that me and 3 editors at Laura's Cave missed, and it was just one word, and it changed the entire outcome of the book, and I can't believe none of us missed it, and it was such a huge thing, and I was like, thank you, because if you hadn't have pointed it out, it would have been out there forever, and I would have known that this one tiny mistake has just changed the whole outcome, and it shouldn't have been there, and one of us should have caught it. And but I was scared even as I did it. I was like, oh my gosh, this could go so badly, especially since I contacted her through Goodreads. But she was fine with it. She was like, oh, thank God, because I was worried that I was saying something bad and you were going to be mad. And I was like, no, I needed to know. So, but I did break my rule, but I still say don't do what I did.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad that it turned out positive for you because it is scary. You never know what's going to happen, and especially if you're a new author and you're new on Goodreads, you don't know any better, and you feel like you want to say something.
But they will kill you. You'll be lucky if they don't show up at your house. It's best to just pretend like you don't see anything on Goodreads.
Yes. Well, awesome. You've given us so much good advice so far. Let's see what else I can pick out of your brain today. Let's see. We've gone over writer's block and advice to authors. Do you have a favorite author? Anyone that inspires you?
So many. It's really hard to say. I will say that Jude Devereaux, I kind of credit with the beginning of my love of reading romance. She was the first romance book that I ever read, and so I credit her with starting me on that road of loving romance books. And J.R. Ward started me on the road of loving paranormal, and of course the paranormal books I've written was the first award that I won. So I do credit those two, but otherwise I just love to read. I love books. I love the way they smell. I love everything about it. So it's really hard to pick out one particular person and say I love this author above all others. But I think most people are like that when they love to read.
Oh, absolutely. It's so hard to pick a favorite. I have like 5 favorites right now. So, yeah.
The favorite of the day, I'm really in love with Kylie Scott right now, and her Stage Dive series. That's probably of the day right now. That's who I'm buying everything that comes out.
Oh, awesome. I have to look that up. I'm not familiar with it.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Well, good. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. I had a good question for you. Do you ever do like a physical book tour? Do you go to different cities and do signings and everything?
Oh, yeah. This is usually my time of year for that. And luckily, last weekend was my last trip of this year because it's really exhausting. But yeah, I've been to Texas and Miami and Ohio and Kentucky a few different times. I don't go like full out 50 states all at one time, but I do try to go as many places as I'm invited and I could possibly make it, because I think it's important to get out there and meet people and make connections and let people see your face. And this past weekend I was at Romanticon with my publisher, Laura's Cave, and it was 37 authors, I think, to hundreds of readers, and it was a blast. It was truly a reader's event and so much fun.
That sounds like so much fun. you feel like there were some, like, do you have any areas that have a bigger turnout than versus other areas?
Romanticon is definitely the biggest of the year because since it's an event that's specifically for Alora's Cave authors, and that's what readers know that they're coming there for. They're coming there to see you. It's always the biggest one. The next best thing that I've done was when I did Texas. I was in Dallas, and I can't even remember the name of the bookstore now, but we had a wonderful turnout there. It's funny, but locally, when I do like Hastings and places here locally, I don't have that big of a turnout. I've had signings at Hastings where I've just sat there and watched everybody coming in the door, you know, turning in their used video games, trying to trade them in. All college students, because I live in a college town, and trying to smile and not feel too subconscious as everybody's coming in the door looking at me, but really that's probably my worst. But Hastings is a huge supporter of the local author, so if anybody has one in their area, it's a great place to go and set up a book signing because they do love their local authors.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it is nerve-wracking to go to a book signing and everyone's just staring at you, and some people wonder what you're doing.
You're trying to tell me something. Look away.
Yeah. Let's see. So your first award was for paranormal, for your paranormal stories. Can you tell us about your awards?
Yeah. I feel bad saying I have a lot, so I don't know where to start. But the very first one that I won is when I placed Best Paranormal Romance of the Year with Paranormal Romance Reads. And I didn't even know with that one that I was in the running. And my friend Tracy James Jones actually called me and said, congratulations. And I was out with my husband, and I was like, okay, for what? And she was like, well, I posted it on Facebook. You've won Best Paranormal Romance of the Year with Romance Reads, Paranormal Romance Reads. And I was like, oh, for what book? It was like The Society of Sinners. And I was like, oh, okay. And I got off, and it really didn't even hit me until even then when I got home and saw they had tried to contact me through private message, and then I was crying. But I was up against the next year, The Danger with Sinners, which is the same series, was up against J.R. Ward for Paranormal Romance of the Year with the Australian Romance Readers Awards, and that one was a big one for me. I, of course, couldn't go to Australia, and I knew I was going to lose, but just to hear my name, you know, my friend does live in Australia, and she went, and she did a live Skype of the event, so I could actually hear my name called alongside J.R. Ward's, which was a totally awesome moment.
That sounds so surreal. Amazing.
Those were authors that I read and loved, and never dreamed that I would one day ever be up against them for anything, or any of my books would ever be compared to anything they had done. And now I've won 3 Reader's Favorite Awards and 1 Reviewer's Favorite Award, and 2 like a Rising Star and a Superstar Award. Several things, but every time I'm always blown away because I write under my real name, because I never dreamed that anybody would ever buy my book other than my family. So this really is my dream come true, and I seriously never believed I'd get to write full-time as my full-time job and be able to support myself that way. Never. So anybody who thinks that they can't, they should try, because you just never know.
Wow, you are such an inspiration. That is incredible. Because I was just about to ask you if you write full time, and you do, and that's great. Congratulations.
I will say that I wasn't prepared for how stressful it was going to be to depend on I have to sell this many books every single month, and the first month that I don't, I'm going to be in trouble. I wasn't prepared for that. But I was so excited. My book, A Secure Heart, hit 23 on the bestsellers list in 2012 or 11. It was right at the end of the year.
Mhm.
And I was able to quit work when that happened, and I was so excited. I just went into it with both feet, thinking, "Oh my gosh, you know, it's hit 23, and it's just nowhere but up from here." And I was so wrong. You know, it was like, no, it's so just downhill from here for like 2 years, and that's me, you know, making myself sick with stress. But I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Oh, that's so good. So, so since you do that full time, like, do you see that you have a problem balancing things? I know you have a family, like, or
Oh,
it just works out.
sorry,
No problem.
I forgot about that. I did for about a year. It was horrible. For the first year that I was writing full time, I don't think I wrote a word. I was on Twitter trying to build a platform,
Mhm.
kind of desperately trying to sell what I already had available,
Mhm.
and because I like to eat, I'll never be a little skinny girl. I like to eat, and I was dependent upon it. So I was
Yeah.
trying, and so I finally one day I had to tell myself, no, you've got to. And I set a schedule and said I will be offline from 10 a.m. every morning until 3 p.m. every afternoon. That is my writing time, even if it's me staring at the wall, no idea what I'm going to write next. I can't be online. I have to do this. And so I've been pretty strict, and that's helped a lot. And I've put a lot of books out, sticking to that schedule.
Oh, that's great. Like, it's good that you have a schedule and things are working out for you so well. So congratulations. Yeah, definitely a big inspiration. Do you think that there is like so you said that you made it to the top of the charts. Does it like set off some kind of red flag that like makes Amazon just recommend your book to everyone and and like feature you?
It really does.
Okay.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Yeah.
If the secure heart, the one that hit, they didn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it was there only like an hour. They
Yeah.
seriously, once you hit that high, they change it every hour. They start figuring, when you're trying to get that high, it's every 3 hours, but once you make it, it's every hour. So it
Right.
stayed there for an hour, and then it dropped
Oh.
considerably. But my series Undefeated, which is 4 books, Bryant, Ace, Walton, Paul, those are like get crazy advertisement, and I have no idea why. Well, they stayed in the top 100 in their genre for a couple of months, and
Oh.
after that, I mean, for years now, Amazon. I can't tell you how many people contact me, and they're like, "I got an email from Amazon today, recommending your Undefeated series." And Bryant is the second book I ever wrote, and it's still in the top 10,000 on Amazon
Yeah.
overall, and top into the top 25 in like 3 different genres. And it stays there all the time, and it's crazy. It's priced at 99 cents, so it's not like I make a ton of money off of it. But it's crazy. I don't know why people keep buying it, but they do, and thank God. Thank you. Like I said, I like to eat.
Well, that is really really great. um, so let's see. Where can readers connect with you?
I'm everywhere online.
Yeah.
You can find me on my website. I do have a contact form on it at charityparkerson.com.
Hmm.
On Facebook at Author Charity, and on Twitter I'm Charity Parker So, because they wouldn't let me have that one last letter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm everywhere. If there's I'd be here all day on Tumblr,
Hmm.
Instagram, anywhere. Just search my name.
Well, that's great. Do you find that some social media outlets are more effective than others?
I
Since you're
do.
on social media?
On Twitter, I'm there constantly, not
Hmm.
really in person. My account is automated for the most part.
Yeah.
But people don't really talk to me that much on Twitter.
Hmm.
On Facebook, I talk to people all the time. If I'm
Hmm.
there, I will talk to anybody. And I think that it works. I try not to do too heavy of promotion there, because Facebook is something I've always felt like it's very personal, and it's mine, and I'm liable to post anything, and I'm often offensive. So, but yeah, Facebook is the big one for me.
Yeah. Oh, good. Do you, do you use your personal page or your author page to connect with fans?
I tried them. I have like almost 10,000 followers on my Facebook author
Wow.
page, but it's funny because nobody ever talks to me there, ever.
Oh.
And as soon as I post anything, it's like I lose 15 people. They don't really want me to say anything. On my personal page is usually, I don't always accept every friend request,
Yeah.
especially if we don't have any mutual friends, because I do post pictures of my kids and stuff. So I do tell people, if you want to follow me on my personal page, please feel free and interact and talk to me, and I will talk to you. And I try to make every post public so that I can interact with everybody. But please don't be offended if it's somebody and I don't accept a friend request, because I just don't accept everybody. I do try, but if, like I said, there's not anybody in common, I'm always like, And usually I don't talk to anybody in private message unless they're a really close friend of mine, because sometimes even when you think you know people, as soon as they get you in private message, they send you an inappropriate picture. So I try not to do that, and it'll show that I've seen the message, and I probably have, but if I didn't respond, it was probably because, like, I don't know.
I agree. It is a very thin line when you get tons of people wanting to be your friend on your personal page, but you don't know them, and it's hard to not push the accept request, but you kind of have
It is, because
to.
you kind of feel pressured. Like, they're looking at me, they want to accept their friend request, and so several times, I usually do it about once a month, I'll do a post where I'm like, please don't be offended if I didn't accept your friend request. Just follow, interact, and maybe eventually I will, I'm still seeing it. I didn't deny you. Still sitting there. Maybe I'll hit the accept when I feel comfortable, but if I accept it and they immediately send me a private message, I'm probably not going to respond.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, man, I wish we had more time with you, because I'm kind of starstruck right now talking to you. Like, I really look up to you. And I really thank you so much for joining us. And you've given some amazing advice, and it's been good to get a little insight on your work behind the scenes. And I'm glad this is recorded so that people can come back and, see what went on today. And I just want to thank you so much, Charity.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it, and I hope I've learned something that is useful.
I'm sure they did. I learned a lot from you, so thank you so much. And everyone can find more about Charity on her Twitter page, and I will post some things on the website as well, so that everyone can go back and communicate with the authors and follow them. So thank you so much, Charity. You have a good rest of your Sunday.
You too.
Thank you. Bye. All right, that was so much fun. I'm so glad that all the authors came by today and chatted with me, and I hope that everyone that viewed learned something, or it was amazing. We laughed, and wow, Charity Parkerson really inspired me. But so did Calinda and Adam and Lawrence. This was really, really, really incredible. And the Book Nymph, which is a PR company for authors, artists, poets, and pretty soon small businesses, is available on www.thebooknymph.com. We also on Facebook, facebook.com/booknymph, on Twitter @thebooknymph. We're also on LinkedIn. There are going to be a lot of events like this where I will bring your favorite authors to your Google, YouTube, and this was also aired on the Book Nymph Publishing.blogspot.com, and it'll also be archived on my YouTube page, which is KNYCOLELEE, K Nicole. That's where you'll find all of my videos. Wow. So thank you all for coming today, and just look forward to our next event. It's going to get even bigger and bigger and bigger and better. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.